That's the thing about books, isn't it? They let you travel without moving your feet. The words of the author Jhumpa Lahiri lays the perfect foundation for this special chat we are about to have with a special Sri Lankan. A very good day to you wherever you are around the world. You are watching News First. As I mentioned earlier, we have a very special guest talking to me today all the way from the United Kingdom. He made to national and international news recently after he won the prestigious British Academy Book Prize for Global Cultural Understanding for his work Waves Across the South, bringing glory to our island nation in these rather trying times. Professor Sujit Sivasundaram, thank you so much for taking your time to talk to me today.
It's very nice to join you. Thank you.
My first question is a very simple one, but it might have a complicated answer from your end. What did you truly feel when you heard that you won the British Academy Book Prize? Your first thought?
I was quite shocked, in fact, because it's a very big honor to win this prize, which is across the humanities and social sciences, for a book which makes a difference to the way we think about the world, and a difference to the way we think about identity. So I was very shocked and didn't believe it for quite some time. But now it has sunk in, and I'm very pleased because I can share the good news with other people, and certainly also with Sri Lankans as well. That's a very important aspect of this, because when something good like this happens, you can share it with others, because a book like this always comes to be out of a collective effort, conversations with other people, the work of other people as well. And so I've had a lot of help, and so it's something to be shared. And so that's very nice.
One constant thing that everyone, all the critics have highlighted about Waves Across the South is that your meticulous research that has gone into the work. How important is research to an author?
Well, this kind of book is based on many years of research. In addition to all those conversations which I mentioned just a moment ago, I traveled to all of the key sites in the book. So I traveled to Mauritius, I traveled to Tasmania, I traveled to New Zealand, to Singapore, to India, various other places, Burma, Myanmar, to do research. Because, of course, our world today is full of loud people saying various things about this and that, about cultural identity, about the way ahead for our politics and so forth in different places around the world. And so to actually present an argument about the changes that have happened in our world, it was really important to me to base that on very meticulous research. And so this is why I traveled to those places, with the understanding that actually one could find material in each of those places, which was different to the material you would find in London or in Paris or in New York. So to actually write the book through the research that was undertaken in each of the places which figures in the book.
Professor, one of the judges, Patrick Wright, speaking about your book, said, and I quote, "Waves Across the South is a riot of ingenuity, a truly powerful and new history of revolutions and empires reimagined through the environmental lens of the sea," end quote. How did you incorporate the great ocean in unraveling this story?
Well, I grew up in Velavata, and I live close to the beach. And so the ocean, being Sri Lankan, the ocean has always been there at the back of my head. And when I started to work on the late 18th century and the early 19th century, I realized that it's even more significant for that era, because a lot of things happen across the ocean. People come across the ocean. The port of Colombo expands massively in the 19th century due to all the ships that arrive. But goods go across the ocean, ideas go across the ocean. So this is a history that's not a national history, by the way. It is a history of all the links and the connections between island societies and across the sea. And so, yes, so the sea is a very significant medium, a very significant conduit, really, for imperialism, for invasion, but also for modes of resistance to imperialism, for the imaginations of islanders in places in the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. as well as technical thing. Things go wrong because of the waves. Ships can be wrecked, storms can hit, people are washed aboard, etc. So for all of those reasons, this is a period where actually kind of working with the sea, the late 18th century and the early 19th century, working with the sea was really significant to explain imperialism and modes of resistance to imperialism.
Professor, the book delves deep into culture, and as we all know, culture goes through evolution. Uh, what sort of issues did you address through your work?
Yeah, so one of the things I'm interested in is, of course, difference, cultural difference, because the argument of the book is not that Sri Lanka is the same as Mauritius, is the same as Tasmania, but that there are actually very significant differences between these sites, as well as parallels between these sites. But the perspective I bring is that this moment, which is the age of revolutions, as we call it, where there are great changes across the world because of the French Revolution, the American Revolution, that culture itself is being defined, redefined in each of these island societies. So people are coming to terms with, who the outsiders are and who the insiders are, who the invaders are, how to respond to invasion. And so it's a moment that's very significant for understanding what culture is today, really, in the modern world, and how we think about culture, and how we think about difference as well.
Professor, writing a book, let alone, is a huge challenge to an individual. You encounter many demons, if I may say, with your own personality as well, such as writer's block and so on and so forth. What personal challenges did you encounter when you decided to pen this book?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, it's not a secret to say that there are very few people in the UK who are professors in this particular field who are not white, right? So it's quite unusual to be a non-white, a person of color, as we call it here in the UK, working at this level as a professor. And so what that means is that I've had to find my voice and to be confident enough to be independent minded, regardless of what anyone says. And to do that, it was really important to have the help of others, of other historians who are friends, and also family back in Sri Lanka. But really, in facing that challenge, one of the things that helped me is being Sri Lankan as well. So my own heritage, my own ancestors are totally mixed. I have ancestors from many communities in the island, both Sinhalese and Tamil. And so in some ways, being Sri Lankan is being a malum, it's being a kind of mixture of things. And so our ancestors have faced cultural difference and navigated it, despite the many challenges on the island. And so, in a sense, if one is non-white in Britain, one has the resources of being a Sri Lankan in order to face those challenges again.
Professor, before this book, Waves Across the South, you also penned Islanded as well, which delves deep into the forgotten legacy of the global South. Coming back to the present day, where Sri Lanka is now in the crosshairs of geopolitical rivalries, what is your take on that?
Yes, no, it's a really interesting moment with China, with India, with this Cold War in the Indian Ocean. I mean, one of the things that I'm quite interested in is how we can place that story in a long history. Okay, so I've been starting to think a little bit about the port of Colombo and how the British actually radically changed it through programs of building breakwaters in 1900. So we look at all those pictures of the port today and go, my goodness, it's really changing. But actually, something quite similar happened in 1900 when the British calmed the waters and allowed steamships to come with huge numbers of breakwaters being built. And so one could actually think about the challenges that we face today in light of the challenges that we have faced in the past and the resources that we have had as Sri Lankans to face those challenges. So, as a small society, we're a small society, we're a small island on the world map, but actually, we're at the center of the Indian Ocean world. And we have been able to resist, we have been able to meet challenges. And so, our history approach like this, not necessarily as a national history, but rather about Sri Lanka in the world, can serve as an inspiration for us at this new moment.
Professor, just before we wrap up, let me ask you, now you are an internationally accoladed, internationally acclaimed writer. What are the tips or what advice do you have for the emerging young writers that are struggling here in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, you can do anything you like. It's one piece of advice, because I think in Sri Lanka, it's sometimes the case that people say you've got to do it this way, or you've got to do it that way, or you should be a doctor, or something like this. But I think the ceilings. You can go through the ceilings, and we Sri Lankans have written not only in this field but in other fields as well at an international level now, and it is possible to reach an international audience. And follow your imagination, follow your creativity, and be independent minded, really. And then, there's no limit to what is possible. And that also, I would say, is part of a Sri Lankan tradition, a heritage. It's not only me, there are lots of other people who similarly have been able to do this.
Thank you so much, Professor Sivasundaram. It was my genuine pleasure talking to you, and on behalf of News First, I would like to wish you all the very best in your future endeavors, and I would like to once again congratulate you on this massive feat. Let me conclude this special chat I had with a special Sri Lankan with a quote from the great Ernest Hemingway. Art in the blood is liable to take the strangest of forms. Have a good day.